Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to take a look at this Strider SNG. This is a pretty rare version. I didn't realize until after I started doing some research. A 𝗦𝘁𝗍𝗃 edge is what this version of the Strider SNG is. This is a replica version. I should be clear with that. I got this from one of those online Chinese shopping sites that we all know and visit sometimes. This is in a 154 cm, and the SNG actually stands for Strider Next Generation. This is their middle size. I think this was came out originally around 2003, so this thing is 20 plus years growing strong. They do have an SMF, which is the bigger version, and a PT, which I call petite, but that stands for really personal tactical, which is a smaller. So this is in between. So if you're, I know you guys have seen these on all these online, shopping sites all the time. PT, I always think of PT as petite. That's the tiny one. SMF is the big one. That's the, super massive mofo. And this is the normal guy, the SNG normal guy knife. So that's what we got here, the 𝗦𝘁𝗍𝗃 edge. There is this thing, I talked about this in one of my other recent videos, called the Holy Trinity of knives. And the Holy Trinity of knives was something that came out, I don't know, 10, 15 plus years ago. I can't quite find the origins of it. Maybe one of y'all will know. You can give me down in the comments. Is the three knives, the XM18 from Hinderer, the SNG from Strider, and a Sebenza from 𝗕𝗂𝗴𝗲. Doesn't have to be a very specific model, but it's usually a Hinderer, a Strider, and a 𝗕𝗂𝗴𝗲 Sebenza typically. But that's 10 plus years ago. And so what I've seen actually in a lot of the chat groups is everybody's now making up their own holy trinity of their three kind of grail knives that you think just represent the industry as the best of the best in the industry today. It doesn't even have to be three that you own. They could be just literally grail knives, knives that you want to get, but maybe you will, maybe you won't, but they're the biggest, coolest, most, badass knives out there. So I'm interested to know, and y'all throw it down in the comments, what do you think the top three best grail knives are out there? Is it still the XM18 and the SNG and the Sebenza, or is somebody else taking one of those places? Anyhow, love to hear what you guys think about that. I'm going to take a closer look here today at this one, this SNG. Don't forget we have a contest coming up, 2,500 giveaway, so you have to be a subscriber. Down below here you can hit that subscribe notification bell. You will know then when the video comes out, which is going to be in the next week or two. I haven't said it yet. And all you have to do is comment on that video. It's not going to be a long video. It's not like a live where you got to listen to me talk for 2 hours. You just literally, here's the knives that we're giving away, and it's a 5-minute video explaining each of the knives. All you can do is drop a comment, but you do have to be a subscriber. So if you're not already, hit that subscribe and notification bell. God, it's always hard to get those straight. Throw your boy a thumbs up if you got to leave early. That certainly helps me with the algorithms. Let's take a look at the box that it came in. I had to put a label because it's just a generic. I do like these. I mean, these are cool, hard case carrying boxes. You could put lots of stuff. It has a rubber gasket in there, so really good for supplies and gear that you might want to pack in a go bag or something like that. So there's lots of uses for those boxes. However, it's obviously not the real manufacturer's box, which I'm A-okay with. What that means is that now nobody can try to pawn this off as the real thing to some unsuspecting buyer, right? Even unsavvy buyers will probably look at this and say, yeah, there's nothing in here from Strider at all. This doesn't look authentic at all. You're going to have a hard time passing this knife off as real, I guess, is my point there. And that is a good thing. All right, let's take a look at the size comp. It's always hard to get a sense of the size of these knives from videos like this, so I always put them against the Para 2. PM2 and the Para 3 there. You can see this is much closer to the PM2 size. Actually got it beat by just a little bit there. If you can see, it's a fraction of an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch. I know that angle throws it off a little bit. What else are we going to look at? How about, haven't looked at the 𝗦𝘁𝗻𝗌 here in a while. That's still one of my favorites. I do love that knife. It's a good one. It's about the same length. It's pretty much the exact same length as the 𝗦𝘁𝗻𝗌, a little obviously bigger than the Pyrite Light, right? That's just the regular Pyrite. That's not the big one. Let's do one more. How about Rocky the Raccoon here? And what is that? Civivi Vision FG. Bigger than both of these. So this is a pretty full-size knife. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and get down to the specs. bring them up on the side of the page, and the full open length, this is 8¼ inches, right? So it is a good medium to full size. I'm going to call anything over 8 inches is a full size knife, in my opinion. For me, it's a little deceiving on video. That's why I like to do the size comparisons. The blade itself is about 3.6 inches, 2.8 worth of cutting length, because you have both the finger choil and the sharpening choil, which at first I thought was weird, but now I'm kind of actually coming to like it quite a bit. 4¾ inches, dead on with the original. The blade thickness on this is really pretty close to the original. I mean, the original is 160 thousandths. This is 156 thousandths. A little bit thick. Up here only, you can see it tapers down very nicely towards a very fine point on this thing. The blade finish, I mean, they make these in all kinds of variations. The SNGs, you probably have seen that. Different blade steels all over the place, different finishes all over the place. This is a stone-washed version. Does have a mostly almost full flat grind there. The handle scales normally on this knife come in as a G10. Usually there's almost always a G10. We're going to talk about the difference in scales here in just a minute. These are obviously full titanium. The real steels on these things are all over the place as well. Magnacut, 20CV, I think they've got them in 3V. They've got all kinds. Just about any premium steel has probably been put on one of these knives. This is a 154 cm. It's supposed to be a 60 HRC. We're going to find out how well that actually holds out. If that's true, that's near the top end for 154. That's a really good heat treat if that's where they've got this thing at. The weight on the others will vary. Again, most of them come with G10 scales. This is solid titanium. However, these are much thinner contoured scales. So 4½ ounces makes this thing the perfect all-day, easy to carry weight. No issues there. Obviously, we're running on a frame lock just like the originals. This one was $63.75. The real one in this type of finish with the monkey edge frag pattern titanium full tie, 900 plus. So these things are pricey boys out there on the real market. All right, let's take a little bit of a closer look. These were obviously built originally for military and tactical use. The whole origin of Strider knives when he started out was really in the military for hard use, you know, special forces kind of knives. And that's the whole method behind the design on these. That's its, you know, its heritage, where they've come from. They were building, and still do, very solid, heavy duty, solid workhorse of a knife. As I mentioned, they typically come with a boxed G10 on the front and different variations of titanium, but almost always titanium backside, but a boxed square, not contoured, and the box covers almost probably 75% of the back, as well as down here on this end. So that's one of the big differences on this particular knife. I just saw this online and said, you know, I've wanted a Strider SNG. I love the way that frag pattern looks. I love that it's contoured full titanium scales. So I thought that's just a really good design. The price is right. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on this. Well, now I've been trying to find similar knives out there in the real world just to have some pictures or something to compare it to. Where did this come from? Where did this particular design and style? I cannot find these. I found a bunch of monkey edge and a bunch of frag patterns. I think one was copper maybe, but for the life of me, I can't find plain steel, titanium steel, plain gray titanium contoured thin scales like this. So apparently this was, I don't know if this was a specialty, like a custom that they made in this, and that's where the Chinese guys got the idea to pick it up and knock it off. I don't know where this came from, is what I'm telling you. However, it is known for excellent ergonomics, no matter what, you know, what position you hold it in. So right here, you've got this triangle in the butt of your hand. If you had to like drill a hole into wood right there, that's how you would hold it. You could give it that force from the back end with nice grippiness to it and cut like that. You've got excellent jimping all across the top here. Nice forward finger choil with a big fat rear end out there. Means this thing's not going to slide out of your hand. This is all day long comfort. Jimping goes well up the blade. When I'm cutting cardboard, I'm cutting like this all day long, and that blade, you can see, thins out nicely as it gets down towards the tip. So it's not as thick as 150 thousandths throughout the whole blade. Really, it's not. By the time you get to the cutting edge, it's already thinned out considerably. So very interesting in terms of the design, all the different grip positions. Of course, being a tactical knife, that's what this is made for right here. That back thumb ramp is really made to grip it in this position and have a solid grip on the knife. That way, in case you need to, you know, as Javon says, it's your Slurpee saver, right? There's the reasoning, the idea, the everything behind the design of this knife. It's designed for lots of different positions, very comfortable and very secure in every position. There is no internal milling, but as you can see, these scales are already thin, which is part of what the downside is. We'll talk about that in a minute. The pocket clip on this is true to form, does have the monkey edge, as does the blade here. That's the monkey edge logo, and then on this side over here you have the Strider logo. That's pretty true to form when you get those kind of knives like that. The pocket clip comes the same. This pocket clip is brutally stiff. Like, I'm going to have to try to figure out how I can bend it. And I mean, I'll just get a little pry bar or just bend it like this without trying to bend it too much, but it definitely comes pretty stiff. It doesn't stick up too high. It's not going to be terribly uncomfortable. So overall, that pocket clip is not too bad at all. And again, there are tons of aftermarket parts for these things, from complete screw and stud kits and pocket clips and you name it, everything you can get to replace on these things. However, it is not reversible. These are not made for lefties, and I'm not even aware of any of their real versions that are made for lefties. Maybe y'all will know if that has happened, or if there's maybe a scale swap kind of thing you can do for lefties. So sorry, lefties, you're out of the loop there. The pivot is pretty unique. You can see there's a hole clear through that pivot screw, right? You can see right through it. That's pretty cool. This is actually a hex bit. It's on this particular knife, it's a 3mm. On the real knives, they usually have a proprietary screw that it's somewhat similar to the hinderer screw. Almost looks a little bit like this one. You can see with the slotted, it has to kind of jump over the middle there. Anyhow, I'm glad this one doesn't have it, because all it takes is a 3mm. It's 8 T8s on all of the body screws, T8 on the pocket clip, T6 on the over travel, and T6 on the steel lock bar insert there. So there's your hardware on this thing. You can see the studs on this are not really for flipping, although I think, you know, you can do it if you want. Really, those are just simply stop pins on the blade here to lock it in very solidly, and that is locked in very solidly. There's no blade play here. There is, however, a little bit of pivot lash. I didn't even know this for the first 2 weeks of having and carrying this knife till I was getting ready for doing this review, and I said, I wonder, does it actually has just the slightest little bit right there. It's not going to make any difference at all. I think it's a function of the style of the pivot that they use on this thing, so not an issue. Again, I never noticed it until I actually felt for it. There's no detent lash, however, either. Otherwise, you know, all very well done. Total solid lockup. You're not going to get much better than that. The closed position, because this body pin here, the standoff, is actually the stop pin in the closed position, and I was worried about that. You know, they went to all the trouble of creating a dedicated sharpening choil, and they did a great job on that, but the pin hits right in here. I was worried that, well, if I do any sharpening, is that going to cause a problem? And no, it won't. It is just enough inside of that sharpening choil that it lands in there, no problem. So should be all good there. Only deployment you've got on this is obviously this thumb/reverse flipper. You've seen me do this all day long. This is not on bearings, by the way. This is on phosphor bronze washers. This is super smooth. When I first got it, it was very stiff. It takes a couple hundred flips of really getting this thing broken in order to get it loosened up like that. But you can see, easy every time, no problem. The detent is good. It's a little clicky. And there you go. And you've seen me kind of drop shut it. It will drop to your finger, and then you can shake it shut. So easy on that. Now that's a good thing, because the other thing is it's a very late detent. That is where the detent is. That it's not yet on the detent ball. Right there, I'm breaking it over. So it's a very late detent. However, because it's so smooth, and because of this pin here, this finger choil, that is not sharp in any way. I can easily drop that to your thumbnail all day long, and an easy shake to close it. So nice on that. very good all the way around. Very happy. You know, it's one of those knives that you're not sure about when you first look at it and you say, ah, it looks kind of weird, I'm not sure about that. And then when you get it and you hold it in your hand and you choke up on it right there with that jimping, that feels so good in my hand. I cannot wait to really get to my cardboard cutting test with this thing. Even hard use. Now, hard use is going to be a whole nother deal we'll have to talk about. As I mentioned, it does have a steel lock bar insert. The branding is all true to original. The factory sharp came pretty good on this knife. This is better than most, I would say. This is going to be a 10 out of a 10 all day long. Nice, easy, smooth. You can just feel it kind of really slicing cleanly through the paper. So great on that. 10 out of 10. Ergonomically is where this thing shines. It doesn't seem like it would because there's like hard angles on it. But as I mentioned, just the different positions in which you would hold this knife, even choke back right here, that kind of fits into that little butt palm of your hand nicely. So if I had to do some pokey like that, but again, you flip it over, a little gas station knife action right there, you've got great locked in feeling. So the ergonomics are really the deal with this knife. The downside, the negatives on this, as I've already kind of alluded to, these are pretty thin scales. And when you get here to this jimping part of these thin scales, and that's where in hard use I'm really going to be cramping down into that, that's going to get to be a little sore. Even just the scales themselves, there's just not enough meat to them. And so when you really squeeze and grip that, same thing on the bottom as well. You're going to feel it on the top and the bottom because it's just so thin. Now, there's beautifully contoured scales. You can see they did a great job. Feels good in the hand. For normal, everyday use, opening packages, boxes, even cutting a little bit of rope or cable ties or what have you, whatever that would be, no problem. It's going to be that real hard push cutting when you get to the wood cutting part where I'm like trying to feather stick on that wood. That's where I think I will feel it. Otherwise, negatives, man, it's hard to knock a knife that's been going this strong for 20 plus years. I will tell you the lock bar is very sensitive. That makes it difficult for lefties. Like that's almost too much pressure with my thumb right there on that to make it work lefty. You really have to try to keep your thumb out of the way, and then you don't have much to grab onto there. So it's going to be a tough one for lefties. You can see you can work it out, and it does work okay. But it is pretty sensitive on that lock bar. It's just worth noticing. Not deep carry. I don't know why I mean, you've got all this real estate up here with that screw. I mean, why couldn't you have just attached a clip up there? You know, but again, 20 years ago, that's not what they were doing in knives. So you're stuck with maybe an aftermarket, although I'm not even sure how deep carry an aftermarket will get you. Interesting lanyard hole placement. I will note that on most of the new SNGs, they have a totally different lanyard hole that's up here in this corner. It's just a tiny little hole too. I don't even know how you would get any sizable, even regular size, like 550 cord. I don't think you would fit it through there. However, this is a well-designed lanyard hole. So if you're into lanyards, and that's your jam, you're covered on that. Other negatives. T6s on what? On the over travel stop and the lock bar insert. Can't really complain about that. That's kind of dumb. The single-sided body screws, I can complain about that. Hinderer does that too. I guess that was a thing to do about 20 years ago. You can see all these body screws don't have screws or screw heads on them, so it can potentially get to a point where if that spins too freely, you're gonna have a hard time extracting those screws. And again, they did this on the Hinderer. I don't know why you wouldn't put your more attractive heads without the the T8 bits. Why wouldn't you put that on the show side of your knife instead of the rear side? I don't know. Maybe to them this is the show side. Maybe this is the cool side. I don't know why. Maybe y'all know the answer to that. Otherwise, this is a really cool knife. It has definitely, some of the best ergonomics as well as some of the worst ergonomics. In light duty use, it feels excellent. It feels really good in the hand in all those different positions, even choked up. That pinch grip right there, the blade point comes down, so you don't have to get too high up to do any draw cuts. Easily slice through packages like that all day long, man. All day long you can hold that knife like that. So some of the best and yet some of the worst, only for really hard use. In terms of ergonomics, looks badass. Obviously, these are pretty cool looking knives. It's very smooth action. Has a great sound, a snickety kind of sound. Just love it. Love that sound. Super smooth on those phosphor bronze washers. Very functional blade design. Nice 3-inch give or take, a little under. Got a nice belly. We should do really good in the cutting test. It tapers down nicely. You want to be careful about that tip, but man, that should go through cardboard, and actually already has. I've broken down a couple of boxes, not like full blown like I do in my test, just where you cut down the sides and get them flat basically. And yeah, that tip is thin enough to be slicey enough. Very pokey, slicey, good knife there. Really cool piece of knife history. It's part of that holy trinity that we talked about at the beginning. Y'all let me know down in the comments what your trinity is. Otherwise, 154 cm is plenty good for my use. It came real sharp out of the box. I feel very confident in holding it. It feels good in the hand. Just all around pretty cool knife. I don't really recommend replica knives. I'm just sharing my experience. But for the 63 bucks that this was, I am extremely happy with this purchase. Not only because it's just a cool piece of knife history in terms of representing what these knives were back then and really still are today, but it's actually a very functional knife. Do any of y'all have an SNG? I'm curious to know. Do y'all have one of these? Or do you have a real one? Do you have a replica one? How does it work for you? How do you like these? These are kind of a weird design. It's almost like a Spyderco that once you hold it, you get it, but until you get it in your hand, you don't get it. You don't really understand it. I'd love to hear what you guys think about all that. Let me know down in the comments. What are your 3 Trinity knives, and do you have one of these SNGs, and what is your opinion on it? I think that's all for today. I appreciate you guys as always. We have the contest coming up. Don't forget to subscribe down there below in order to be able to get in on that. I do have a website, you guys. I never really push it much, but bladesonabudget.com. It's just my channel name.com, bladesonabudget.com. Got all my knife reviews there, all kinds of links to all the knives, all the products that I use, from the sharpeners to the oils and the tools and all that stuff, as well as all the knives. Pretty much every knife I've reviewed on the channel you'll find there, easy to search database. So anyhow, give that a look up one time. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys so much for sticking with me. Throw me a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. Let me know if you don't down in the comments what you'd like to see differently. Otherwise, appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great day. See ya.